All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order. And how's it working? There we go. Everybody say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Joe Salvia.
to the flag
Join the meeting
of the United
States of America
and to the republic
for which it
stands
stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice for all.
Wow. The flag looked good though, so
That's cool.
it's a good thing. All right, so the next item is roll call, please.
Mr. Hamel?
What? No, yeah. Here
All
in
right.
Highland, I forgot. Yeah, everybody would tell where you're at.
All right. I'm present in Highland. Mrs. Frederick?
This Frederick is in Highland Township.
Cooper? Mrs. Cooper, sorry.
Oh, I'm present, Highland Township.
All right. Mr. Howe?
Mr. Howell, present, Highland Township.
Mrs. Lewis?
Mrs. Lewis, present, Highland Township.
Mr. Salvio?
Mr. Salvia, present, Highland Township.
All right. All present counted for.
Where are you? Where's Joe? Way out in the field somewhere?
He's on the
Mr.
phone.
Salvia now at Harvey Lake Road and Wardlow.
Okay.
In the ditch?
Warning,
Not
Will
quite.
Robinson, warning.
All right, so the first thing we'll need is approval of the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, can I ask for the addition of an item after 10F to have a discussion of credit card limitations?
What did I do wrong?
You didn't read my mind faster ahead before I read my mind.
Don't push that point.
Right.
All right. Item G, number 10. Credit card, what?
Credit card limits.
Okay,
I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Frederick, second.
okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick?
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia?
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Mr. Hamel, yes.
Okay.
All right, next item, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support, Howell.
Where are we getting noise from?
That's Joe. Joe, I think your phone's going nuts here. So
Either that or it's a turn signal. All right, we're ready to vote on this?
yes, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick?
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia?
Salvia, yes.
All right, Mrs. Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe?
Mr. Howell votes yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Mr. Hamel votes yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item 6, announcement and information inquiry. The Highland Community Prayer Breakfast is May 6, 2021 at 9 a.m. It's virtual on the Highland White Lake Business Association Facebook page. The second item is the Highland Garden Club plant sale will be Saturday, May 15th from 9 to noon at the Highland Activity Center parking lot. The Founders Day Parade and festivities that were planned on May 15th have been canceled. the township offices will be closed on May 31st, 2021 in observance of Memorial Day. So at this next item is public. Is there any public comment?
I have a public comment. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but it's in regards to something under new business. So I don't know if I say something now or I'm not sure what the protocol is.
Yep, go for it.
My name is Lisa Kelly. I live at 1060 Stone Barn Road, Milford, Michigan, which is actually Highland. That's just my postal code. And I want to talk about the rezoning request to change a parcel of land that's on the corner of West Highland Road and South Tipsco Lake Road, PIN 11-30-101-001. And I just want to say I live down on Stone Barn, and Tipsco Lake Road, Stone Barn are all becoming these throughways for people trying to get off of Hickory Ridge, get over to M59. They can make a left onto 59 coming up that way, and putting a commercial, changing it to commercial, you're changing the dynamics of what our residential neighborhood's about. I don't mind having 3 new houses up there, but then putting a commercial piece of property there when there's going to be homes south of it and to the east of it. It's, Mr. I think it's Bryson who put in said that he doesn't think that that land would be attractive to a homeowner, but everything around it is a home. There's a whole residential neighborhood in there. So you can't really say it wouldn't be attractive to a homeowner when all these other people live up there. And, we want to keep our neighborhood a neighborhood where we have people who walk. Tipsco Lake is a dirt road and it goes over to Denham Lake on the other side. We have people who ride horses down here. That's why we moved out here. And so to now put another piece of property in there because someone doesn't think they can sell it, it's a residential piece of property, and that's the way we would like to keep it down here. And all that other thing, everything else is being rezoned. We keep changing the landscape of Highland to just like this strip mall of a road. And I really don't think it shows any respect, especially for those homeowners that are all around it. And that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'm Mr. Bryce. Can I share something?
Yes, you may.
Okay, there's 7.8 acres there. I'm only looking to make the front part up by 59 commercialized. And I understand there's residential on the back side of it. That's why I want to put residential homes on the back side of it. All I'm looking is to be on the frontage of M59. That's all I'm asking for. I mean, we got a daycare center right there. And kitty corner from me is Livingston County. That is zone commercial. Kitty corner from me, I have a big GM dealership. I mean, it's becoming a commercial area. I'm not looking to make the residential part of it commercialized. I would like to put up three homes there on right at 1.5 acres for each one of them homes.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have a public comment? All right, you see anybody out there, Justin? Or
No, I'm not seeing anything.
all right, then we're going to move on to the next item, number 8. This is in regards to parcel of property on Hickory Ridge Road, south of M59, and it's there's 2 parts to it. Actually, it's multiple 4 actual parcels, but there's an east and west side. It's a total of 110.12 acres or something like that. The township has been in conversation with the property owners to look at possibly taking opportunity to work out something where we could keep that open space. And so in order to do that, one of the things we'd have to do is to come up with a DNR grant, which is the normal way that we'd handle that, in which the DNR would help with the purchase of the property. They usually pay 75%. The township pays 25% towards it. But there's some problems with that, with that process. That process puts such a long time frame. It could be a year to 2 years out before we can get the grant completed, and that would keep the property owners in limbo until that time. So we were very fortunate to have, I had a conversation with Jim Lloyd, who's a township individual and works with the Six Rivers Land Conservancy. And he told me to give them a call because they may be able to help us. And so Chris Bunch is here. He's the executive director of Six Rivers Land Conservancy. And I guess I'll give the history. I don't know if the last time we brought this up, whether we really talked about it much, but the family that owns the property is the Robinson family, and it's right across the street and to the south border of the Lazy J Ranch. And Roscoe Smith had heard that the family was looking to put the property up for sale. And being a member of the Parks Committee, he brought it to my attention that one of the things one of our directives was to have a park in each quadrant of the township. So this actually ends up in one of the quadrants of the township, and the southwest quadrant. And so I pursued it from that perspective. So Jim Lloyd, who I knew, like I said, worked with Six Rivers Land Conservancy, did a good job of connecting me up. And Brian Marzolf, who I originally talked to, he's unable to make it tonight because he's got on I think the city commission for Auburn Hills or something like that. So his meeting's tonight and he can't make it. But Chris Bunch, Chris, you want to unmute yourself? And he's the executive director of Six Rivers Land Conservancy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share. What we're going to talk about is the process of working with Six Rivers. And what they would do is they would purchase the property outright. That would allow the family to be able to settle their estate issues. Issue might not be the right word, but there's multiple family members and they want to see that this land gets preserved, and they agreed with me to move forward if we could find a way to do what her mother and father wanted, and that was to keep the land open. So in any event, Six Rivers has an opportunity to be able to work directly with the property owner, purchase it, and they would work with us in conjunction on that, and then help us along the road to working with DNR to develop the grants to get the money to eventually purchase that property. So I'm going to ask Chris to come on, and I'll put this document up, and I hope I can. Here we go. So hopefully everybody can see this document.
Nicely done. Fabulous job. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm very grateful to be here, and I give you lots of points for your mastery of the Zoomer. It's not as easy to be master of the universe as everyone thinks. So you're doing a fabulous job. Yeah, Brian extends his apologies, but he's actually a city councilman for the city of Auburn Hills. And so his meeting is at the same time as yours, and he was unable to make it, but he has been the lead on this project. We are very excited about the chance to work with you guys on this. We're very excited about the opportunity to preserve some open space and provide some additional recreational land there in the region. And you've got you see sort of the outline of how we do our assist projects. That's been in your packet and it's up on the screen. I will just give you a little bit more background. We've done a number of these projects. We've got 3 of them that we acquired last year, one for St. Clair County Parks, one for Oakland Township Parks, and one for Chesterfield Township. All 3 of those were applications to the trust fund, and all 3 of those applications were successful. So they should receive their grant award, their grant contract sometime within the next couple of months, and hopefully we will close on those projects by the end of the year, and each of those communities will cash us out and take over the properties and put them to use as parks in their communities. And actually, during the period where we own them, we lease them back to the community so that they can get started right away if they want. And so we do this, as Mr. Hamill explained. Part of the reason that we do this is that the seller, and in your case, the landowners there, they want to be assured that they're going to make the sale, and they want to be able to get it done fairly soon and in a quicker time frame than you guys can act if you're going through the trust fund process. So that's where we come in, we step in to provide a little bit of a paraphrase here. We step in front of the bus and get the property out of harm's way. We pre-acquire it and we own it and hold it on your behalf, and then we work with you through the trust fund process. And some of the communities we work with write the grants themselves. Other ones have us work with them to write the grant. So we would, we'll have that conversation as that gets closer. But the grant cycle for the trust fund is that the grant deadline for application is April 1. So obviously that date has passed for this year, but we'd be talking about April 1 of 2022 for a grant application. And then their decision comes in December of that year. So the decision would be December of 2022. And then there's some process steps that they have to go through. Once they've made their recommendations about the grant, they have to go through a process of appropriating the money. And typically the contracts are let in the late spring of the following year. So 2023. And then you would work through that process, and typically you can close it out by the end of the year. So ostensibly, you could own this by the end of 2023, and in the interim period, we will own it and hold it on your behalf and lease it back to you for you to operate. And part of the reason that we do this, of course, for us, is that we're very interested in seeing more land conserved and more public recreation land available. There's 8 million acres of public land in Michigan, and there's only 200,000 of it down here where all of the people live and work. So that's one of the things that we'd like to change. And the trust fund process, they will not give a grant to a public agency for property that they already own. So you can't buy the property and hold it and wait for the grant to come through. Either the seller has to be willing to sit on it and wait for the process to go through, or you've got to have a third party like us come in and facilitate the acquisition. So that's exactly what we're talking about doing with you guys here. We're very excited. We've done a lot of trust fund projects. I just described 3 of them that were successful last year. We have another one that we're doing right now with Marine City, the city of Marine City, and that grant application is in, and we're in the process of closing on the acquisition of the property. And we will continue to own it and hold it for them while their grant process finishes out. We've done, in addition to the ones I described, we've done several others, and we have a good relationship with the trust fund. We typically host one of their meetings and give them a tour. every year. We've got one coming up in October this year, assuming that all the lockdowns are over and people can get out. So it would be great to have this project a little bit out of the barn and have a little something to talk to them about to give them a little taste of what's coming. So hopefully that answers, that gives you some background. You know, the bottom line in the transactional stuff is that we do all of the due diligence work to the standard that is required for a public agency like you guys, and to the standard that the trust fund requires, so that all of those are done in a manner that is acceptable to all the parties. And we typically get a facilitation fee for doing the work. And that's of course because we spend a lot of time and energy on it, and we actually end up taking ownership of it. But assuming that you get the trust fund grant, that's paying for 75% of the value of the property. So that's a pretty big bonus and a pretty worthwhile investment. So I think that sort of gives you the background. You've seen the handout. You know, assuming that you guys choose to move forward with this, we'll do a letter of intent with you guys and with the sellers. And as soon as we've got that in place, we will get to work on a purchase agreement to get the property locked up so that it doesn't go on the market. And so we're not getting phone calls every other day with people telling us they've got buyers breathing down their neck. So, you know, once again, we're very excited, and I am thrilled for the opportunity to work with you, very grateful for it, and would be happy to answer any questions you have.
So this is open for the board to, if you've got any questions, this would be a good time to ask them right now. And we will have further discussion on this. This is like a prelude to the closed session. So, there's other information that you'll get in the closed session that ties into this. So if you have any questions, Chris is the guy to ask right now. And otherwise, we'll, I really thank you, Chris, for that. And if Jim Lloyd, you on board still? Jim Lloyd?
Yes, I'm here. I just had trouble unmuting.
So is there anything you'd like to add to the pie here?
Well, Chris gave you a pretty good overview of the process. I'm, just to be clear, am and have been a member of the board of directors for the Land Conservancy for quite some time. And I'd be glad as a local resident to stay on in your executive session if that's acceptable.
Okay, we can, Lisa, is that a possibility?
I can't tell if I'm.
Here. Oh,
You're muted now, so.
Okay.
Jim is a resident and he'd be working on our behalf. Would that be okay for him to be in the session or not?
No.
Okay.
Once you allow outside parties to enter your closed session, you risk making that information no longer confidential under the rules. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Jim, but we appreciate your input, and I know how passionate you are about the outdoors and conserving land. And one of my things is that I had a sister who used to live north of Chicago, and I was in the nursery business for years. And the north of Chicago, near the Wisconsin border, were these huge nurseries and farms. And some people got really smart and started to do some conservancy up there because they were selling these things off for subdivisions like they were going out of style. And so they really did a great job of doing just exactly what we're talking about here, conserving property and open space. And Lisa Kelly, who spoke earlier, has been adamant about open space. And I think this is an opportunity to show that, you know, we are trying to keep Highland with that rural look and feel, and especially we're hoping that we can maintain Hickory Ridge Road as a key pathway that is reflects that. So, Chris, I thank you very much, and we'll be in.
Rick, Judy and I have questions.
Yes. Judy,
So my question is, if we don't get the grant, what happens to the property?
So typically what happens is we arrange our purchase agreement with you guys to last for 2 years with the ability to renew it for a third year. And that's anticipating that we may have to go back to the trust fund. If you're not successful in the first round, we set it up so that we can go back again and potentially even a third time if necessary. Ultimately, you guys will need to purchase the property from us. That's part of the, one of the things that we have to do in order to get financing. The bank needs to know that, that the loan is going to be paid off. But, you know, we've been very successful with these applications, and I think this property would score very high and would have a strong probability of success.
Thank you, Chris.
And my question was, I wonder if you could explain a little bit more what fees would be involved and like what kind of lease would be involved, or, I mean, do you do it on percentage or?
that's something that we're going to have in the closed session.
Okay, I wondered if it was.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys will talk about those numbers in the closed session, but in relationship to the lease, what I can tell you is that we've typically done it 2 different ways. One way is that we'll lease it back to you for $1, which is just to, you know, just so that we've got consideration for the contract. The other way that we'll do it is that we will lease it for a portion of the purchase price, which will reduce the amount of money that we have to borrow. And then that lease amount would be applied to the purchase price at the end of the contract. So those are some of the details that we hammer out as we start heading down this path to determine what to do. And I can tell you, as an example, I can tell you that the North Channel acquisition we made for St. Clair County, we paid the purchase price was $1.71 million. Clay Township contributed $200,000. We had to borrow $1.5 million, and the township turned around and leased it from us for $300,000, which they were able to take out of their reserve fund and reduce the amount of interest that has to be paid on the loan. You know, we knocked $300,000 off of it. So that was a decision that was made in that particular project. And in other ones, we've leased it back for, you know, just for $1. So it just depends on the finances and what you guys decide you want to do.
And just to reiterate one more time, you did say, Chris, that we couldn't just buy the property outright and apply for a grant through the trust, right?
Exactly. The trust fund will not reimburse you for property that you already own. So one of the it's sort of it's a little bit of it's a little disingenuous. The property has to be at risk, you know,
right.
It can't be something that you guys own. But on the other hand, one of the things you get points for is if you have a willing seller. And so if we go in and own it, then you know you've got a willing seller. You've got a letter of intent with us that says that this is going to happen, and you've got a willing seller, and you actually get points in the grant for doing it that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, this is Beth Lewis. I just have a quick question. In your experience, what percentage of these grants are approved the first time around?
Well, the last year there were $30 or $40 million worth of proposals and about $20 million to spend. So only $20 million worth of them got approved. This year there are, and I just sent this note to somebody, there are $36 million worth of acquisition proposals, and they're going to have about $18 million to spend. So I can't tell you the number of grants that is or what that translates
Mhm.
to, but obviously there will be, there are some really big ones in there. I know there's a 5 million and a $7 million application. So just in those two alone, if those are not successful, then that's only 2 grants. If they are successful, that's going to eat up a whole lot of the money. But I know the Oakland Township property, that grant this year was successful. It was the first try on that property, but I know in past years they've had to go back 3 times. They weren't successful twice, and they went back a 3rd time and got it. So I know there's also a track record of going back and being successful.
Thank you.
You bet.
I have one more question.
Chris?
Do they ever approve for a lesser amount than is requested?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, we've also done it the other way. We've gone back and asked for more, which is, you know, they're less thrilled when you amend your application to ask for more. But I've watched a township supervisor and a parks director, both of them in different projects, say, listen, we would be happy to reduce our ask in order to take advantage of the money that was left.
Thank you.
Question, Chris? Joe
Yes.
Salvia. I assume once we pick up the lease, we become liable for any actions on the property?
Yeah, that will be the case. You know, that will be the case to some greater or lesser degree. That will be the case anyway, because one of the things we will say in the agreement with you, if we're going to go in and purchase it, is that you will cover our costs, our holding costs, which of course includes our insurance and whatever else. But yeah, if we lease the property to you, then you have both full control and full liability.
Thank you.
Rick, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Since I won't be able to be with you later. Everybody knows that the amount of land left that's suitable parkland in Oakland County and in Highland Township is very, very small. A parcel needs to be a little bigger than, you know, even a 10-acre home site to be reasonable for parkland. So if you're familiar with the different large parcels in the township, you know that the supply is very small. So it's important to be a bit opportunistic when these kinds of things come up, because if you pass on it, you're never going to get a second chance. So I just wanted to encourage that kind of thinking, because the future opportunities get smaller and smaller every year, and there will be no at all selling this parcel on the open market.
Thank you, Jim. That's very well put. All right, any other questions? Lisa?
I had a question for Chris. Does the trust fund prioritize timing of applications? So in other words, is there a benefit to get your application in sooner rather than later?
No, because they actually start their, you know, they try and start everything from an equal footing after April 1st. They do allow for out of cycle applications. You could apply in August for this round, but that's a pretty high threshold in order to get them to consider it in an out of cycle application. And we really discourage that, because it's a huge push just to try and get it in. And then you're also pushing uphill against all the other people who said, well, wait a minute, we followed the rules. How come you're not? So, you know, in our world, we, of course, if the deadline's April 1st, there's nothing we'd love better than to push submit on, you know, March 2nd, and then go off and sit in the sun in Florida for a week, but it's rare that it works out that way.
Is that part of this deal? We get to go to Florida for a week? I'm in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. As long as it's in March.
So I think the board, whether they know it or not, Jennifer was a first-time winner on one of these grants with the property we got from Highland Tree Farm. So it can be done, and I think the key is it's based on points. There's a point system, and you get points for different elements. And as Chris said, one of the points is having a willing buyer. So you want to get as many points as you can. So there's different things that do that: pathways, activity design. There's a lot to it, but it's worth the opportunity to me. I think so, and it'll become clearer when we get to talk about it in closed session. You'll see a little bit different picture on it. So.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that your meetings fall on the same night as Brian's, because he was part of the reason we hired him. He was the parks director for the city of Auburn Hills for 30 years. So he has done several trust fund applications. He's very good at the technical side of that. And I have a long-standing relationship with the trust fund board members and staff members. So we do a pretty good job of understanding their interests and how to get the best shot we can.
All right.
Rick, this is Roscoe Smith.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I serve on the Planning Commission as well as the Parks Committee. Excuse me. And the Planning Commission has done a number of surveys, and open space and recreation always comes up number one every time they do it. And the Parks Committee has done recreation master plans, and it's always the same thing there. And 3 out of the 4 quadrants in Highland have recreation space, but there's one quadrant that's woefully lacking, has none, and that's the quadrant that we're talking about. The southeast quadrant's got a jewel in Dodge 10. It's got a lot of state land, dog trials, boat launch, mountain bike trails. The northeast quadrant has state land and Rose Oaks, and which is Highland Oaks, which connects the Rose Oaks with a trail, which makes it a huge space. There's a lot of lake access in the north quadrant, and in the northwest quadrant, we've got Highland Hickory Ridge Pines. So there's a lot of recreation available to 3/4 of the area in Highland, but none in the southwest corner. So, you know, this is practically the only adequate piece of property that's left. And to miss this opportunity, I think, would be a huge mistake. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Roscoe. Okay, any other? All right, Chris, thank you very much. Jim, Roscoe, very helpful. It's a lot easier for me to take it into the closed session and carry it forward from here. It'd be nice if we could just talk about it, but there's things that happen when we talk dollars and cents that can send it south, so we don't want to do that. And, but at the end of the meeting, we'll have our closed session, and I will be let you guys know right away.
Rick, I'm having a hard time hearing you when you turn away.
Turn away. Did I turn
Yeah,
away?
so that way, that way is better.
What way?
The way you're looking correctly right now.
Okay. So I may have had microphone covered or something with paper.
Okay.
All right. So I guess we'll move on. Chris, you can head out if you want, unless you want to hang out for the rest of the meeting to find out what goes on. So your call. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks all of you. We're very excited about doing this. Rick, I put my phone number in the chat for you in case a question comes up in the midst of your session that you need to call and have an answer to, I'm certainly glad to respond. Call. Again, thanks so much. You guys have a lovely meeting and go out and do great things. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Could somebody grab that phone number for me on the chat?
I can't see it.
To you privately, Rick, because I don't see it.
Oh, here, I can shoot it out to everyone.
Or just shoot it.
Okay, I just got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, let me write this down. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next item. This is pending business. This is a proposed zoning ordinance amendment Z019 to rezone parcel 1115-326-017 vacant North Milford Road, approximately 1.7 acres. OS Office Services District to C2 General Commercial District. It's submitted by applicant Sam Ralph, property owner is Remand Properties LLC. There's a lot of conversation that this thing can, this particular piece of property, I think, can needs to be discussed. So what I'm going to do is so we can just do this properly. I'm going to make a motion to approve the rezoning from OS to C2 on parcel number 1115-326-017, and that's amendment Z019. So would somebody like to support that?
I support that motion.
Okay, so
Frederick.
now what we're going to do is we're going to go into discussion on this. I'll do a little bit of, I hope all of you read the full packet. Beth, you were involved in this. Roscoe, you're watching this. You were on the planning commission. The planning commission recommended deny.
Rick, there is something covering or making your microphone
I don't know what. Can you hear me now?
crumbly.
You're coming in and out with a lot of static is why.
Static. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, I don't know what's causing it. So probably Zoom. Let me see if I can pull up on this other one. Maybe not.
It seems like when you're moving things on your desk, it's making static.
Okay, that might have been the paper on the computer.
Right.
Trying to look at the stuff. So, all right. So anyways, what ends up happening is this piece of property is on the northeast corner of Wardlow Road and Milford Road. And there's actually at one time there were 3 parcels in a row. Now there's 2. One has been combined. There's more interest in having it C2 or C1 or something other than office. And so I think what we need to do is we need to look at this. I know it kind of goes against the grain of the planning commission, but that strip of land that goes, I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but it goes from, let's see if I can pull this up here. I got that ability. Wasn't thinking about. Let me get to the map. Okay, so what you see on the screen is the hatched out piece that we're talking about. Just to the south of that is the 7-Eleven. To the south of that is Iverson's. To the west is Midwest Glass and also the Apollo School. Railroad track runs behind the property. So I've been engaged with many people interested in those parcels, and over again, when you tell them you can't you know, it's office and you can't do this, you can't do that, it sets them off and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me personally, but if we can go to the next map. I don't know if anybody can see my arrow here on the screen. Right here is Bill's Collision, right where it says CXS Railroad. That's Bill's Collision. That's as industrial as you can get, although it's in a residential area. It's pre-existing. The next property to the south is a grocery store. Then there's what used to be a chiropractor's. I don't know if it's a church now or something like that. The next parcel down is a heating and cooling contractor. Is that it? Yeah. No. Anyways, there's another commercial style building there. Then next to that, I think, is the heating and cooling contractor. Then there's one residential house. It's under this blue line here. And then this parcel here sold not too long ago, well, last year. And that was to be a dentist office that got put on hold because of material costs. And this is a parcel we're talking about. So what I'd like to do is engage in a conversation about what do we really do with this? We're very short on commercial property. I know the conversation, it came up at the west side of the 59 there at Tipsico Lake Road. It's nothing like this property here. You know, you got the railroad to the back, you've got open residential property on the east side. And then, so I think that we need to think about what we're going to do with this moving forward. And the reason that I'm saying to move forward with a C2 is that there's a number of things that I don't think most of you probably haven't looked at the what the ability to be able to do on the different lots. So Jennifer and I went through, let me see if I can pull this up.
Well, can you scroll down to what it's actually master planned currently?
Oh, okay.
In the packet? It should be the next page.
Okay, let me.
So that's the zoning map.
And here's the master plan.
And so currently it's master planned office and low intensity commercial.
So, and then the 7-Eleven store is C1.
Which is also master planned office and low intensity commercial.
Okay, so what happens here is we need to look at how this C2 could affect it. So I think that that's what I'd like to do, is to get you guys to kind of question what you see in this area. I mean, this is kind of part of our commercial district. I think that it's something that we could, once we get this solidified, we have not redone the master plan in over, I don't know how many years, Jennifer, 20 years?
Yes, 20.
More than 20, and we're supposed to review it every 5. So
Well,
there's,
it had a revision 5 years ago.
okay, that's Scott Green.
Yep.
We did a
revision. We didn't do a full master plan, but we did a revision 5 years ago.
right. So anyways, the request being C2, I think is something that we need to talk about. So I'd like, somebody else to pitch in with a question or two. Jennifer, you want to talk about this at all? Jennifer?
Yes, so currently it's zoned office service. And if it was to be rezoned to C1, the uses that would be allowed, that are not allowed in office service, are pet care facility. And if you have outdoor pet run, it has to have special use, and then it has to be 100 foot from residential. It could have automotive parts and accessory store, not including installation. And that's an inside sales store. It could have a banquet facility, private meeting halls, and lodges, which there is one down north on Milford Road. And then gas stations, golf driving ranges, and hospitals. So those are the uses that are not allowed in office service. So if it were to go to C1, they're special land uses, so they would have to go back to the planning commission for review. And then for C2, if it was going to go to C2, the things that are allowed in C2 that are not allowed in C1 or office service are adult-oriented businesses, auto repair and collision, hotels, kennels, and taxidermies. So those are the uses that would be different than office service and C1.
Can I ask why Mr.
Ralph?
Ralph, I'm sorry, I was going, is it Rima or Ralph? Which one?
Ralph.
Why is Mr. Ralph asking for the change in zoning?
Mr. Ralph, are you available there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me, guys?
Yep.
Hi, how's everybody? The reason I'm trying to change it, I have some plan for the future. That's including like a Tim Horton and a gas station. That's why I'm trying to go to C2. I know C1, I could do a Tim Horton, but gas stations still require approval and public hearing, correct?
Jennifer, you want to respond to that? I'd say yes.
Yeah, so a restaurant is, I'm looking for it, by right in C1. And then a drive-through, if the Tim Hortons were to have a drive-through, is a special use under C1. And yes, that does require a public hearing at the planning commission and then a recommendation to the township board.
Yes,
And
that's
then-
why I'm
And gas
recommending,
stations also.
that's why I'm recommending, I'm asking for C2 if possible.
Yeah, in C2, restaurants are a permitted use and drive-through is a permitted use. And gas stations are a permitted use also.
Number 3, permitted.
Yep.
Okay, so what it really boils down to, Mr. Ralph, is that you'd prefer to not have to go through the special use process to be able to do something with that corner, and your desires for that corner basically are not allowed in OS at this time. So, and I think we reviewed that. So if you look at the screen, you can see those items that would be covered by it. So I think that
I have another question whenever. So this property is at 1.7 acres, right?
yes.
So is it big enough for any of those uses?
Actually, McDonald's is on just 2 acres. And this is about, if you were to look at the actual square of the property, this is about 30 feet shy of that in terms of north-south depth. So it's very close. It probably would, it most likely would fit.
How would you fit a gas station on there and a Tim Hortons then?
They're in the same building.
Yeah.
Same building? Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna be like a satellite Tim Horton. Like you see a lot of gas station, like on, there's few of them on Telegraph and 15 Miles, a gas station, and the Tim Horton next same building.
Okay. Rick, can we see that, the image of the actual view of the property again?
Yeah,
Can you
if
scroll
if I,
that
if I
back?
could, Rick, when you're looking at rezoning, I understand that the applicant has an idea of what they're gonna do. But you
Scott.
gotta keep in mind, anything that it's rezoned, whether it's C2 or C1, it has to, you have to think that it could be any of those things, right? Because you're allowing, you're changing the zoning, so anything can be allowed in it.
Scott, this is a board conversation. We appreciate your input and,
Okay.
I do appreciate that, but this is a board conversation, so we got to keep it to that. Okay, so, Joe, let's see if we have the,
And Scott is correct.
Yeah.
If you choose to rezone a property, anything that's on the list is allowed. Some are by right and some are by special use. But they all do have to go to the planning commission for site plan review.
so that's how you can help assist in controlling, how things are done on a site. Now, the other thing you also have to think about is that the site size, something in C1 or OS could be 50 acres. It could be 5 acres or 2 acres. There's all, you
Rick,
can't, the
Could
driving.
you bring up the aerial again?
I want to see the arrow, please.
Hang on, let me get her back up there. Okay. You got it?
Okay.
All right. So if you look at the, there's some conversation that was in the planning commission's verbalization or their rationale about traffic at the intersection. If you look at the in and out on Wardlow for the 7-Eleven and the entrance and exit onto Milford Road, I take this road almost daily, and I've never had an issue ever with any traffic at that intersection. And I don't believe that adding any additional load with another similar type of a facility would be a problem. Personally, that's my personal opinion. I think that probably the one thing that, that I kind of found out recently and we probably need to consider and, is that C1, this is master planned with office and limited business, which is C1. And so it's not master plan for C2. So that I think is something that we have to be looking at. I mean, we've got a master plan that's a few years old and we could look at it and who knows what we'll end up doing moving forward here. But I think that's a consideration that we need to make on this. But it's up to the board on how you feel about what you want to do with this parcel. And I think that as much as I've done to try and make sure that the business environment has places for businesses to open and operate, this has been a spot that is just, it pretty much screams commercial, and it has for years. We've got a bowling alley that's, up the road from there. It's not in this image, but which is commercial, so I think what we need to do is we need to consider the residentials that are to the north and not potentially impede any further than maybe where Bill's collision is at this point. But I think these parcels are suited to be commercial, whether you want to call it office or you want to call it C1. When you start looking at the differences, as you could see, there were very little differences between office. There was 6 things that were different, Jennifer?
Yes, 6 from office service to C1.
Right. And I think that anybody that has paid attention to what's happened over this past year, I think commercial office space is in major jeopardy. And I think that we need to take consideration into the process. I believe the woman that's the dentist that owns the property to the north probably will build and it'll solve that problem right then and there, but it won't look any different than when you go to the south and there's a 7-Eleven, a pizza joint, and a dentist office. So all on one parcel, a C1 parcel. So I think that, this is a discussion we need to move forward on. And so I made the motion to approve it, and there was a second on it. And I think what we need to do is if you guys have any more questions, please ask them now. If not, then we'll ask for a vote.
Rick, this is Beth. May I add one more thought to help you with your deliberation?
Sure.
When you look at zoning districts, you should typically look at the intent statement of the districts as well. So if you're considering going from OS to C1 or C2, you should read the intent statement. Here's the intent statement for C1. The intent of the local commercial district is to permit development of commercial areas consisting of uses typical of convenience shoppers, personal services, and office uses. These commercial areas are intended to serve residential areas located in close proximity. The land use restrictions in the C1 district are intended to ensure that development will be reasonably compatible with adjacent residential areas. Properties zoned C1 are typically small in size in Highland Township. Then you contrast that to the C2 intent statement. That's for higher intensity retail service and office establishes than normally permitted in local commercial district. Includes larger areas suitable for shopping centers and large scale commercial developments. Automobile sales, service stations, banquet facilities, general retail and retail development, other sales and services are appropriate and accommodated in the C2 district. So that's always a good thing when you're looking at a rezoning request, is to go back and review the intent statements of the districts involved.
Okay, thank you, Beth. That was a very good point. I think that actually kind of clarifies things a little bit for probably.
It sounds like C1 is also ideal then. Is that correct?
It appears to be maybe more appropriate.
Yeah, based on what you just said.
So.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
I just have a few comments too I wanted to make. The parcel north of that, that was previously owned by Dr. White, if I'm not mistaken, he came before the Planning Commission in March and wanted that rezoned, last year, I believe. And, we felt at that time, the Planning Commission did that was too intense and that he could probably develop it as, OS, which he was afraid he couldn't sell it, I think was the main issue. Well, he did end up selling it. And like you mentioned, it's going to be a dentist's office. So I would actually agree with, Beth's evaluation and your evaluation that I feel that C2 is just a little too intense for that area, based on the size of the property and what C2 includes.
All right. Anybody else?
Beth, does that his request fit into C1?
He requested C2, but when you're evaluating a rezoning request, and Lisa could sound in on this, you're free to look at lesser intense zoning classifications. His specific desire that he expressed to you would be possibly accommodated on a C1 parcel if, after study and review by the Planning Commission, they were satisfied that it was compatible with the neighboring properties. And they'd be looking at things like the traffic flow, the hours of operation, anything like outdoor storage, noise, just the impacts. If he could present a site plan to the Planning Commission and the public got a chance to weigh in, they would make a recommendation to the board with some proposed conditions, and then it'd be up to the board to decide on whether his specific proposal was appropriate for that specific parcel. But that general proposal in general terms could be accommodated in a C1 property with special use.
Thank you. Again, I'm listening to what your intent was, the intent that you read.
Okay, so
I have a question. Okay, the thing is, because it's gonna cost me a lot of money to spend to make the plans and blueprint and engineering and all that thing, then at the end of the time, then you guys not gonna approve it, not even C1. Even if you approve C1 right now, then you're not gonna approve it to C2 for a gas station. So what makes me sure that me going and spending 100, 200, 150,000 on all those planning, then at the end, nothing is gonna happen. And we know Highland needs like a Tim Horton location there. I checked with a lot of people. They do want a Tim Horton, drive through Tim Horton, and gas station too, because it's a main traffic. Everybody drive from Clyde Road to Milford from Wardlaw. So it's in a good location. People grab and go.
Beth Corwin, what kind of site plan or drawings do they have to come to the planning commission with to ask for a special use? Is it full engineered drawings, or can it be more of a sketch?
It's the, preliminary layout and a concept for how you would do the grading, the drainage, the well, the septic system. It's not full construction level plans. Some elevation sketches of the building.
Okay, so
it's not that detailed.
Okay, a little more detailed than just a sketch, but not full-blown construction plans.
Right.
Okay, does that help a little bit, Sam?
Yeah, it does, but I was hoping not to jump through hoops when I go ahead and start the project. Now I have to, before I start anything, we have to go to the board. And
well, I would hope you wouldn't consider these hoops. This is just our process.
Of course, I understand that. You're right, 100%.
And it does have to go to planning commission for site plan review, even if it is a use allowed by right. So you would need those drawings to go there, and you can bring both sets at the same time and have them consider your use requiring special approval and your site plan. And then they would pass their recommendation to the board.
I think one of the things that's important here, and for those planning commissioners that may be listening, the planning commission serves at the pleasure of the board. We ask that you guys work with us, and if we have a position or a point of view that we hope you would understand where we're coming from on that, and that if we approve something for Mr. Ralph, that we certainly would work with him in a manner that would be professional. And I'm pretty doggone sure the planning commission would do that. I think that, they did their analysis. It was based on what the zoning already is. It was based on quote, the master plan, and some other individuals on the planning commission had their opinions of what they may or may not want to see there. So there's a lot of them. There's 9 members there, and there's 9 opinions. And the opinions were to deny this. And so personally, like I said, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be a usable thing. And that's why I made the motion for C2. But I think what we have to do now is we've had enough conversation on this, unless somebody's got something else they want to add.
I want clarification. Will what he's requesting work in a C1 as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So what we can do here is we can have a vote, which I'll call for at this point. We'll call for a vote.
Supervisor?
Yes.
This is Lisa Hamame. If I may just intervene briefly.
Yes.
You are considering rezoning property in a classification that wasn't requested by the applicant. And the applicant at this point might not want it rezoned to that classification for whatever reason. So I don't know if you would be inclined to maybe postpone it or have the applicant indicate his intention on the record before a motion is made, or postpone this and give the applicant an opportunity to meet with staff and explore the differences a little better, and have a better understanding of what this board is considering. I don't know if timing is an issue, but that's just my 2 cents.
Sam, do you feel better about that?
Thank you very much, Lisa. At this time, it seems like C2, as I said, I wish I could get C2, but if I don't get C2, C1 is possibility. I'll be okay with C1 if that's fine with you guys. And as I said, I mean, I'd rather see something nice there than having that lot sitting there for forever. No use to it. So I don't know, it's up to you guys, but I hope I could get C2. If not, C1 will do.
Okay. So what we can do here is we can have a vote on the C2, and we'll do that first, and then I'll take it from there. So,
Mr. Supervisor, her attorney, Lisa, she seemed to have a fairly good thought on this. Does this need to have some planning commission intervention as far as will it work for him as a C1? Or you just want to take a vote on this right now? I think she had some good thoughts.
well, I think between Jennifer's knowledge and Beth's knowledge, it can work in C1. C1 is doable via the master plan. So we're not going against the master plan. It's just that the planning commission recommended denial of C2. There wasn't any discussion of C1 with the planning commission, but that's our prerogative. If you want to, the option is open for that vote as well. So, but the first thing we have to do is we have to clear the motion on the table. And there's a support for it. So we need to vote to determine whether C2 is it or not. And then if it's not, then we have an alternative. So let's, and Mr. Ralph has verbally and on video agreed that if C2 isn't it, then he would take C1 if it's possible. So we can move forward.
So clarification, C1 is not an issue at all because it's currently zoned for that?
No.
No, okay,
It's master planned.
master plan.
Yeah, but it's not zoned that. It's zoned OS. So we would be moving it from OS to C1 or C2, depending on what we vote.
Okay,
All right, so I'll call for a vote on whether we approve the request to, with Mr. Ralph to C2.
Ready to vote?
Yep.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, no.
Clerk Flowers votes no. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, no?
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, no.
Mr. Howe,
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Did we lose Judy?
Judy. Oh, maybe she lost us.
Still here.
All right. Oh, she's playing with her mute. Can you hear us, Judy? Okay, give us a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay. Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamill, yes.
All right.
Tammy, should you indicate what Judy's
Yes.
gesture was?
Yes, that was a thumbs down from Mrs. Cooper.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take the next step then. I'm going to make a motion that we approve to rezone parcel number 11-15-326-017 North Milford Road, approximately 1.7 acres from OS to C2 or C1, I'm sorry, commercial district, submitted by applicant Sam Ralph, property owner Rima Properties LLC.
Support Salvia.
He moved and supported. I think we discussed the heck out of it, so how about a vote?
All right. Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, everybody, on that. Those are difficult things to do, and I appreciate what the Planning Commission does. I hope they don't take that as a negativity. We'll move on and we'll make things work. So, all right. Yes,
I want to thank you for everything. I appreciate your help.
you're welcome. Thank you for being a owner of a business in our community. Mr. Ralph does own the 7-Eleven operation in the building to the south. So he's currently operating right just to the south of that parcel. All right, thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item is a proposed amendment. Let me get North Milford Road, let's see, proposed extension of a cell tower lease. Jennifer's been going out of her mind, I think, trying to figure out these cell towers
It
leases.
has been very fun.
So Gary Dovry, our former attorney, who's now retired, has made a recommendation, and I think what we need to do, I hope everybody read the information from Gary, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to speed this one up. These cell tower lease things, I've looked at them myself. They're always trying to get us to either they want to buy it out and give us a huge cash lump sum. And when you really look at it, it's not a cash lump sum because we would have done better to hold on to it. And those cell towers have value. So I think what I'll do is make the motion. This is a motion to reject the proposed amendment to communication site lease agreement presented by SFA 2012 TC Assets LLC. So that was a motion.
Frederick, seconds.
Okay. Anybody have any discussion on that?
I think this should be a pretty easy one. It doesn't look like a great deal to me.
All right. So on that note, we'll do a vote, please.
All right. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamel votes yes.
Motion carries.
All right. The next item is an introduction. I'll get this one going. This has already had an element of discussion, and this is ironically sounds familiar. So this is an introduction to rezoning requests. So I'm going to make the motion to introduce rezoning requests from LV. Hang on a second here. Actually, I want to change that. I'd like to make a motion to remand the matter back to the Planning Commission for a new hearing based on a lesser zoning classification. One of the things that was in the package was after the fact, Mr. Bryson requested that he would accept like to change it to a lower zoning. And I think what we need to do is send that back to the Planning Commission. Unless, Jennifer, you think we should do anything different?
With Lisa's suggestion earlier, if the applicant's willing to take a lesser, I mean, we could,
Well, the problem is that the request is for C2. So we can't really, if we go for C2 and we introduce it as C2, then we pushed it another month down the road. And you might as well send it back to the planning commission, let them discuss it as C1, and then give us a recommendation based on C1. Lisa, do you think that's the right way to do that? Couldn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, so that's my motion, is to remand the matter back to the planning commission for a new hearing based on a lesser zoning classification.
Mr. Supervisor, if I could just clarify, if you remand it for a public hearing, it's gonna push it back more than a month. A new hearing implies a new public notice, implies another month to pull together a new hearing.
Well, I don't, what,
So do you just want new discussion and a recommendation on the C1? Or do you want a new hearing where we bring in the neighbors to discuss C1?
that's a good point. I think they discussed, I guess I'll ask you for a suggestion on that. I mean, the neighbors didn't like C2. If you send it back out for further discussion, I guess you could have the planning commission just hear it. They've already heard what the public thinks, I guess, so.
I kind of would suggest either the planning commission just discuss it and not have a new public hearing. And because they have heard the public, or could we open it as requested C2? Or could we open it as amended C1?
I don't think the language is correct for that. That's personal opinion.
Lisa?
Can I speak?
Jeff, you're gonna have to hang on for it.
Lisa, could we open this as C1, as a request to C1?
I guess I'm not quite following. You're introducing it today.
Introduce it as a request for C1, or would we have to introduce it as a request for C2?
I guess I don't see a difference between this one and the previous one unless I'm missing something in your procedures between readings.
The previous one was actually already introduced, so it had a public hearing and went through we introduced it a month ago. This one needs to be introduced. Then we'll pick it up again a month later and we'll do just what we did tonight, talk about, have that discussion. So the thing I'm concerned about is that the request was to go out as C2. I don't know how Mr. Bryson's letter on April 27th plays into that. Now, maybe Beth can tell us something more about that. The meeting was on what day? On April 8th. So on April 27th, he requested that he'd like to change the request to C1. Does that letter change that process or not?
Yeah, I just know that, I mean, the rule basically about adopting ordinances is you can't adopt it in the same meeting in which it's introduced.
Correct.
So you can introduce either today, if you don't plan to send it back down to the planning commission, and then you can adopt what you want at the next meeting. There's going to be publication in between there. Whatever you move forward, whatever you introduce today will be published for the second reading.
Okay, so Jeff,
Yes.
we'll give you an opportunity to do, this is my opinion here, to do what we did with the previous property owner. Are you, your intent with your letter is what you want to do, is to change it to C1?
Yes, sir. Yes, I would like to change it to C1 after hearing the concerns of the residents around there. I would like to reduce that to a C1.
Okay, so then what I'll do is I'll change the motion to introduce the rezoning request from LV Lakes and Villages, single family residential to C1 commercial, vacant, West Highland, South Tipsco Lake Road, PIN number 1130101001, applicant Jeffrey Bryson. So that's the motion to introduce.
So to be clear, Supervisor, your motion is to amend the proposed ordinance and introduce it for second reading.
Beth, is that correct? Beth's shaking her head, yes. So,
I just wanted that clarified before it's seconded.
okay. Can we get,
Yes, we can amend the ordinance for you tomorrow.
Second.
all right. This is an introduction, so we don't really need to go into a discussion on this at this time. So let's have a vote.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Mrs. Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamel, yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, Jeffrey, you're, we've made that modification for you, so it's been introduced that way. So
Appreciate all your help.
you're welcome. Stay in touch with Beth and the staff.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is fire department. Chief, you on board?
Yes, sir.
Okay, your show.
All right. Earlier this month, we put out 2 RFPs. The first RFP is in front of you tonight. It's for a PPE extractor. It's fire gear washer. It's a piece of equipment specifically designed to spin and remove all the carcinogen material from the turnout gear. We got 4 bids back. The Continental, the Unimac, and the Milner are all standard fire gear washing machines. The lower price one, Electrolux, that's new to the scene. The proposer is also from Minnesota, so it would be a little difficult for any service or anything else from the supplier. But our recommendation is to get the Milner 45-pound PPE for $9,040. That would replace the 12 or 14-year-old piece of equipment we have at the current fire station 1.
So this is a kind of washing machine we used to use in college where we get 5 guys and all throw all our clothes in at once. And they came out sparkling blue. So 45 pounds of wash, that's pretty heavy. So all right. So I guess I'll do the speed motion thing. I'd make the motion that we approve the purchase from A&B Equipment, Milner number 45 PPE gear washer for a sum of $9,040.
Lewis,
I'll
support.
support.
Which one?
Beth can have it.
Beth, Beth's
Thanks.
got it. All right, vote please.
All right, Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes. Did you ever see so much involvement over a washing machine? Okay,
All
next.
right. The second item is, or the second RFP or RFQ was for office furniture and training room furniture for the new fire station. Again, earlier in March, we put out a RFQ. We received 4 requests or 4 proposals back from various suppliers. Interior Environments was the one who helped us along the way, selecting different products, different stuff for inside the property. They were very concerned about the quality and the lifespan of the equipment. So they made certain recommendations or certain parameters set up on the RFQ that we put out. Unfortunately, they did not come out. They were almost 11% higher than the recommended proposer, Partner House. Wolverine Commercial Furnishings, we did look at their product. They were a little bit cheaper, but it wasn't the same quality of material for the station. Again, this is going to get a lot of heavy use. Firemen are not very gentle. So we wanted to make sure we got good quality equipment. The Court Street Furniture, that was just a partial bid just for the training room furniture. And it was also, when you looked at the big picture, it was a little more expensive than the other vendors. So our recommendation is to go with Partner House. This will provide all the furniture for the training room, tables, chairs, offices, tables and chairs, and workstation chairs.
All right, I'll make a motion to, geez, you got me off guard there. To award the bid for Fire Station Number 1 office and training furniture to Partner House for the sum of $38,899.49.
Support, Cooper.
A vote, please.
All right, Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamill, yes.
Motion carries.
From my staff, thank everyone for all your support along this way. It's been a very amazing process we've undertaken. So thank you so much.
Well, okay, now we got a demand for you.
Uh-oh.
Get your butt out of that fire hall and so we can move in there. You can leave some of the furniture, the new stuff, not that old stuff you got. So good.
My best.
We're waiting for you. We're working with you. So the place is looking fantastic. I hear nothing but positive comments about that building and how cool it looks there. So kudos. So
Cool and practical. Thank you so much.
okay, you're welcome. All right, next item. It's been well, for at least 8 years, I spent trying to figure out how to keep things moving forward in the township. And there were projects that I wanted to make happen that kept getting put on the back burner because I didn't really have the resources, and not necessarily the money, but the background or the personnel available. And my former helper, Jennifer, who is now our esteemed treasurer, became irreplaceable. I looked at an awful lot of resumes, and there was nobody that could fill her shoes and that would be able to do what I needed to do. And what it actually did is it made me look closely inside, and I realized that we had the people in the house, and Beth Corwin's one of them, and Lisa's another one, Lisa Burkhardt. And what it did is I realized that if I could bring them in as my assistants, I can take all these forks that I have on all these plates and we can start to sort them out and we can move things forward. We've got broadband to look at. We've got, the township hall to move forward. We've got sewer and water and there's a lot of projects and they just need to have somebody that's got the background and the skill sets, and Beth has got them all. And so by moving Beth into that position to be my direct assistant and Lisa to take over phone number 6, which was the township's assistant, township supervisor's assistant. That'll take the incredible burden that I dumped on Karen and take that burden off of her so that she can continue to do the phenomenal job she does. And so it really is, it's worked out well that Jenny's moved on because it opened up eyeballs and it opened up my mind to be able to see that we needed to hit a different direction. And if all of you that have been on the board for as long as I have, you realize that we've been trying to find a way to work with Carlisle Wortman, and this is finally the avenue. And I think that this is a good way to be able to move forward into the future. You know, so what I've done is I've put in a request to, if you read the long dissertation, I'm going to tell you that the credit goes to Beth. These are my conversation with her, and these are my words written down in a way that's better than I could have written them myself. And what it really does is it shows you that we can accomplish this within the same budget that we already have. And so it really is it's an extremely positive leveraging process. I think it's as I said in the final line, it's the responsible way to move forward. And I'm really encouraged by the restructuring of the team. Beth and I have had some great conversations moving forward. I've always thought that if there's anybody in the entire building that could give me a run for the money in terms of what she knows and how she thinks, it's Beth. And sometimes she scares me, but that's all right. I need to be tested. So on that note, what I'd like to do is I'd like to move forward and I'll make a motion. So if we need to discuss it, we can do that. I'd like to make a motion that we hire Carlisle Wortman and Associates to take over as consultants, our planning and zoning administration positions. In the letter, it's a flexible, I mean, they'll give us a few days a week, X number of hours, we can raise it and lower it as we see fit. And so I'd like to, I move that we hire them as our consultants for the planning and zoning positions.
How support?
All right. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, Beth.
Yes, I just wanted to add, I think it is a great idea because I know it's extremely difficult to find talented people, you know, like you mentioned, to fill the positions. I'm on our interview committee at work, and it's difficult to even get resumes that are half qualified for the jobs that they're applying for. So I think it's a good solution.
Yes, this is definitely not a secretarial position. It's a brain position. It takes some really ability to see in 3D and living color. And Beth has got that. And that's one of the diseases that I have is I can see things in 3D and living color before they exist, you know, in the conceptuals. And it's hard to, you know, communicate that with people that don't have those skill sets. And so her and I could probably babble to each other and understand what's going on. So I really appreciate it. But all right. So any other comments? Thank you, Beth. All right, let's take a vote.
All right, Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamill, yes.
Motion carries.
Well, thank everybody for that. And Beth Corwin, thank you. appreciate all the help you've been actually for the last 8 years. I did not put you to the use that we should have, but it's never too late. So we're going to make some stuff happen here. All right, the next item is a budget amendment that we need to make for that
Yes,
action.
and we are not increasing spending.
We don't need to do this then, do we?
Yes, well, it was requested because there's some money moving from one department to another. So this way it'll make it so like one department isn't way under budget and one department way over.
Okay.
Frederick makes a motion to approve the budget amendment as presented.
I'll support.
All right, vote please.
All right. Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
For yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so the next item I would have to say is classic Rick Hamel. So I don't think any of you will be surprised, but we met, Beth and Steve, Tino and I are the project planning team for moving our quarters into the new old fire hall. And one of the things that is a critical challenge is how do you take an echo chamber and a freezer, which is probably what it'll be, and convert it into a space where you're going to have up to 16 people all yakking at the same time and be able to be effective. It's not quite the optimum environment. So we were talking about, we had met with, or had the what do you call it? The lumberyard had put together a order for materials to be able to kind of accomplish this. And what it turned into was the floors are not level because there's 4 major drains. You're going to have to build some type of platforms. You're going to have a whole bunch of what everybody knows are incredibly expensive materials today. So once we're done with those materials, they're junk. So you're gonna have to have somebody scrap them out. And so the cost of 2x material is too expensive. So you'd be using sheet metal studs and you'd be building walls, but we don't have any ceilings. So it's gonna echo all over. So anyways, in that process of talking about how do you build pads for, we're gonna use all the furniture that we currently have. And that was another challenge, is how do you make that work? And the thought process came to me that why don't we just buy some she sheds, as they call them, some people call them, especially in Pinterest, and build a town inside the fire hall. So what it boiled down to is there's, I got talking with Beth, and Beth had recently done the research on buying a shed, and so she had shown me the information that she had on it. And it's a company that I had already looked at that was, it's an Amish company on the west side of the state. And they're pre-manufactured, they're all built, and they deliver them as a unit. So anyways, the idea was that we can arrange these sheds inside there, put 2 members from each, which is basically how we're set up. The planning department would have space for 2 people. The building department has space for 2 people. Steve Tino would have a space of his own. So the clerk would have space, although Tammy wouldn't, it'd be her office would have space in it. So that's what we kind of came up with. So as everybody knows, this is spring, and this is when everybody does their cleanups, and this is when people make their plans to move forward with buying sheds and doing projects like this. And with the increase already stated that 10% is the first rise in the material cost, and they're going up to 30% before the middle of the summer. Beth and I took a ride up to I guess you'd call a supplier of this, for this manufacturer. It was north of Lapeer. And we discovered that they had probably pretty close to, I'd say 75 to 100 of these sheds, of which half were already sold. And it would be impossible to have them built before probably winter if you waited, and then you'd be paying the material increase costs, so on and so forth. So what it boiled down to is we picked out 8 sheds and then had to make a decision of how do we deal with this. The company did not want to hold on to them and wait for, you know, the board to make a decision to move forward. So in order to reduce the likelihood that we would lose them, I had to make a deposit on them. So that's going to require a question from you, or a request from you guys. But what I want to show you is, I don't think you can see these yet. So this is what we purchased, or are hoping to purchase with your approval. These are 10 by 16 sheds. They have the ability to put the furniture inside, as well as electrify them. And so the idea is they'll be easier to heat, they'll be easier to keep the noise levels down, the windows open and close. This is another one. And these sheds average around $7,000 a piece. But here's the beauty of it. When we're all done, we can sell them and recoup probably 80 to 90% of what we have invested. If we went and tried to build out the inside of the fire hall and then have to tear it down, we're gonna have to pay for the labor. We actually, I believe the budget was almost $250,000 to go through the process to move us professionally out of that building and into the fire hall. When we presented this idea to the employees, I can't tell you how they're so excited about this happening. It's how do you take a nightmare and make everybody excited about being involved in it? So you could put a little tiny, you know, heater like Julie likes to sit on, and heat each building with one of those, and then supply the lighting and stuff all from inside that building. And then we have a layout. Beth put together a layout to show you how it works. So this is the inside of the fire hall. The top faces the township hall. That's north. And the current chief's office and that are down in the lower left-hand corner. So we put the clerk, the treasurer, and the deputy treasurer in the internal offices. Then we'd have a building with a counter. One building has double doors on an end, and we can make a counter for the treasurer's office. We have the assessor's office next to that with an outside counter. All the file cabinets, the tall file cabinets go along the back side of the buildings. The buildings all face the center, so it's kind of like a town square. And then the tops, these are all file cabinets, and they would become counters where so the public can come in and go up the center. And we can also have them come in from the backside for the building department. So we get the building people to learn that they come in the back door, then there's the building department, and then the treasurer and the clerks come in the front door. And so I think this really turns out to be an awesome setup. And literally we get the entire building in there, and we still have this meeting room vacant. The 2 desks can be put in there for guest purposes and the plotter. And then in the utility room, we're going to add 2 new water closets and a sink. If we can get 3 in there, we're going to do 3 in there. And then we'll also put the server cabinet back in that room. And so that's the layout. Election storage goes in this room over here. So,
We can call it Highland Village.
or Joetown, or whatever you want to call it. But so like I said, I can't tell you how unbelievably excited all of the employees are. They talked about, oh, we can put trees up and we can have, things inside and chairs to sit outside. It's just really cool to have that kind of excitement and an ownership of it. And then the other thing that I've
It really has changed the perspective of moving into the fire station.
Yeah, it's
We
cool.
already have a list of people that want to auction for the sheds.
So I don't think we'll have any trouble getting our a return on it. So I think that it's just as well, I guess if I want to pat myself on the back, it's typical Rick. I'm going to find a way to recycle something. And I just couldn't stand chopping up all kinds of building materials to have them turn into junk someplace. So this is an opportunity for the public to be involved. We can have an auction, public auction, and auction them off that way too. So these are all things we can look at. And the other part of it is they can move the buildings in and we can occupy them way faster than we could if we had to build everything out. And all we have to concentrate on is getting electricity in there and building up the bathrooms. So it really is a bonus. And then the water closets can stay in there. So when the facility's taken over by the bus program or whoever, we have additional bathrooms and they're not, all trying to go in front of the clerk and treasurer's office. So we'll consider those two private so that there's a little more privacy there. But anybody have any comments on it?
Well done.
Yeah, great idea.
Thank you. So here's where the ask comes. So I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Actually, I have to do a request here. Let me get what did I do with it? I wrote it down. I'll do it for you because. So what I've got to do is I'm going to make the motion. And Lisa, you might want to weigh in on this to make sure this is correct. I make the motion to waive board policy and authorize the supervisor. I make the motion to waive the board policy for sealed bids and authorize the supervisor to complete the purchase in the amount of $58,437 to Michigan Storage Barns. Okay, that's a motion. I got the nod. So
support.
Okay, moved and supported. A vote, please.
Real quick before I vote, I just want to make it known I love the idea. I think you put a lot of thought into it, and I think it's going to work out great. I regret that there was not as much thought put into giving the opportunity for board oversight on this before entering into agreement with the company. But I highly suspect this will pass anyways, and I just have to make my vote represent what my viewpoint is.
All right.
So with that said, is there, we can go ahead and vote if you like. All right, Mr. Salvia?
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe?
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper? I do love this idea. I personally think we should have had a special board meeting. I'm gonna vote no.
Mrs. Frederick?
Frederick, yes.
I vote no. Mr. Hamel?
Mr. Hamel, yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a comment on that. There are points in time when the supervisor is the purchasing agent, and there's times when you have to make decisions on the fly. It's a significant amount of money. We still had the opportunity that we could get a refund on it because I put it on a credit card so we could cancel it. But
Is
it was,
that 100% refund?
what's that?
Is that 100% refund?
Yes. So my point is that we need to make decisions sometimes where you can't take the time for the board to have that interaction. I wasn't trying to cheese anybody out of anything. So, you have your opinion, and I think that the key is that we have very little time to sit on this, and also the opportunity to lose it or not make it happen. So I appreciate your point of view, and sometimes there's points where that's why you waive the board policy or ask for it. So that's what I did. I took that chance, and I think it's the right move. So thank you. All right. So where next? Closed session, I guess. No, we got item G that we added. Tammy, you had something you wanted to.
Yeah, so in reviewing this recent activity, I've learned that the credit card limits are rather high, and it doesn't coordinate with what our purchase policy is. And so it creates a situation like what we had. And I would like to propose that we lower the credit card limits on the individual cards to be in coordination with what our purchasing policy says, to allow for board oversight. And if that's not agreeable to the board, then I would suggest changing your purchasing policy that we've all agreed to work in conjunction with what the credit card limits are. So policy says that, anything over 5,000 should have 3 quotes reviewed by the board, and if it's over 10,000, it should be sealed bids reviewed by the board.
So my suggestion on that is that we have this conversation further. I don't know that we can make a decision out of here. I think that the limits of our policy are ludicrous. What can you do for $5,000? Not a thing.
Well, you voted for it.
What's that?
You voted for it when we revised it.
That's because there were some other extraneous pressures put on it. And we don't need to discuss who and why. That we need to really think about that component of it. What can you do anywhere for $5,000 anymore? And there's points where, it's not that the supervisor's trying to take liberty to do something stupid. And, so to me, that's what those levels say, is that the supervisor's not responsible. So the purchasing agent doesn't have any authority or ability to be able to make decisions that are really more realistic than having to go out for 3 bids on some things. We could have done this process different. That's why you have the ability to waive the policy. Policy is not written in stone. And so the credit card limits are actually limited. What we did is, in order to be able to accomplish this, we set the limits so that 2 cards could cover that cost. I would have put the whole thing on my own credit card. I was asked not to do that.
So, Mr. Hamel, how much did you put down on the sheds?
20 some odd $1,000, 50%.
So, and this isn't directly pointed at you either. The policy is set for not only this board, but boards going forward. And we're all one of 7. And so we're not pointing the finger at you saying we don't trust you, but we have to have policy in place to rein things in. And if you want a board to act as a board and as a team, we have to be treated that way, and we have to know what's going on and what's happening. You could have set a special board meeting for Monday, and I think they would have held the sheds for you over the weekend.
Absolutely. Beth, you still there? She can be my testimony. They were not willing to hold the sheds.
No, they we're just gonna leave them on the grounds and first come, first serve. They're not having any trouble selling sheds right now. We've had several people come to the counter this week with proposals for sheds. that they're doing on their own individual lots. Someone came in today and he said, oh yeah, I guess I got time to go to the ZBA because I can't get the shed till September anyway. So I'm confident he wasn't just giving us a sales line. It really is. They're just not out there.
If I can add, I talked to the company today where you were at. And first of all, they said they don't give 100% refund of credit card purchases. They retain money to cover the cost of processing. And also I asked them what was their availability today of 10 by 16 sheds. And they said they had 10 or 12. So I think there was time to do this. And even if they had sold out of one or two that we wanted, there's other vendors that we could have gotten sheds from as well. So, I mean, I understand you felt like you were between a rock and a hard place, and I think it'll all work out as it is, but I want to put in a situation where there's checks and balances. That's what government is all about, is checks and balances. And no one person having the ability to do too much by themselves. We are all elected to have oversight over what happens at the township.
All right, well,
I have a question for legal counsel and the board. Would this have been something that we could have had a phone conference on?
No.
Counselor?
No, you would have had to have a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting under the Open Meetings Act if there was a quorum of the board deliberating.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
well,
So
I don't have a
I want to
problem.
say something. I want to say something if I can. I understand where you're coming from. I've been on the board now my third term and with a few other ones. And throughout the time, we pretty much always followed the policy of the $5,000 and all of that. And there's been a few other times that decisions have to be made. I have no problem with the decision that was made. Yeah, it'd be nice to be in a loop, but you know what? Sometimes I agree. Sometimes decisions have to be made. Yes, there was sheds left, but you know what? What if they would have sold out over the weekend? And you just don't know. I mean, sometimes you got to make that decision on what you feel is the best. So I support Rick. I think it's not like this happens all the time. I mean, we've had a few times here and there, but it's not like it happens all the time. And I understand checks and balances are very important, and oversight's very important. But we're meeting tonight on it. We're getting it discussed, and again, it's not like it's an everyday occurrence. And I think sometimes decisions have to be made on the fly. You just have to make those decisions. It'd be great if we could do a Zoom call or call a few of us, but obviously you can't do that. And sometimes you just got to make those, what your gut says to do. And you all said too, everybody's so excited about this, the move. And, it's not like Rick's related to the guy that's selling the sheds or anything. And I like the idea that we'll be able to recoup most of us back instead of scrapping a bunch of stuff and getting nothing for it. So I mean, it's what a great idea. I think it's, I don't know. I thought about it when you talk about moving over to the firehouse, how this is going to happen. I couldn't even vision. I don't have that ability to vision all that stuff. And so in my estimation, sometimes you got to make this, it's like in life, sometimes you got to make those decisions. And it's not like, we've got a supervisor going rogue and just, doing this all the time. And I think it's, yeah, I get it. Checks and balances are very important. And that's why we are a team. But then again, sometimes you got to make those decisions on the fly. And that's why he was elected supervisor. And that's all I have to say about that.
Going back on a quick Zoom meeting, how many people could we have had on a Zoom meeting for an emergency meeting? We have three, huh?
I think at least four.
Four.
Okay, 3 of them are full-time, so there's no reason we couldn't have had 3 of them. And the rest of us could have been available also. So I'm just throwing that out as a possible solution in the future.
And the other side of this is to protect each one of us too. Yeah, it's to protect all of us too. So no one of us does go rogue, as you say.
Well, I don't have a problem with what you guys are saying.
Right.
And I'm not taking
good because it's nothing against you personally. It's against, it's the policies in place to protect all of us.
I'd like to make
sure that no one of us do that.
Nobody's ever even given me a credit card, so I'm kind of left out.
So I can see both sides of it. And yes, we do have a purchasing policy. And Tammy, are you suggesting that the maximum be $5,000?
I would say if, I don't know what the options are with the bank, but if there's this possible transaction maximum, I would make it 5,000. And then I would say the total monthly credit limit would be 10,000.
Total, well, that's hard
For credit card.
yeah. So then if you gave if you gave the purchasing agent $5,000 and you're saying total of 10,000, then the other nine people that have cards would only have so much money. They could like 200. I mean,
No, I mean,
each card is individual.
I know each card is individual.
Right.
But she was saying a $10,000, so per card.
Per card.
So they're generally they're set at 2,000 to 5,000 each card.
Okay.
So, and then I, as the treasurer, has the ability to increase that at any time per each individual card, as Judy knows.
Yes.
And then, so.
But if the board sets it, then you would relinquish that ability to flex it without a board approval.
Right, and I understand this is not directed towards Rick. This is directed.
Or the project, by the way.
Or the project. This is directed towards future board members.
And policy.
Yes, as policy.
I just want to be able to say, when we go through our audit, the auditors ask us, are there good controls in place? And are they being followed? And I want to be able to say yes.
And there are good controls in place and have been followed.
Except for this time.
We're talking about one instance in 12 years. Yeah, in 8 years. I mean, that's pretty good. But I understand going forward that there should be something. So I'm not familiar with the current credit card policy. I would have to look at it. Judy, is there currently a limit?
No.
There's no.
I mean,
it lines it up with the purchasing policy.
Okay.
So it doesn't have a specific amount. It lines it up with the purchasing policy, right, Tammy?
So I would like to review the credit card one again.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, I just wanted to have a discussion about it. We're obviously going to have to bring it back with a revision if we go that way. And
I mean, maybe
for that.
And I think that's it's a good parameter to put in place.
Right.
And if the purchasing policy is out of whack, we look at that too. You know, I mean,
we did review the purchasing policy and we did increase it from what, 2,500 to 5,000, which has alleviated a lot of work that we have to do, because getting sealed bids for 2,500 is ridiculous. And then getting 3 quotes between 5,000 and 10,000, that's doable. And we can even use internet quotes. And then getting sealed bids from 10,000 and up that's definitely doable.
I'm going to say it one more time. I think, can we not have an emergency meeting via Zoom at any time?
We have to give it 18 hours notice.
Okay.
And, and then we can do a Zoom meeting.
All right. So we didn't have 18 hours.
It was on a Friday, right, Rick?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm just asking. Thank you.
All right. I'm happy with what I was able to say there. I appreciate you letting me say it.
It's a good conversation. Thank you.
Okay. Next item, need somebody to make a motion to go into closed session to consider the purchase of real property in accordance with MCL 15-268D. I'll make that a motion.
Support. Cooper.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
All right. Mrs. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick.
Frederick, yes.
Mrs. Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia.
Salvia, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Yes.
All right.
Can I make a request?
Yes.
Can we have a 3-minute break?
Yes.
Okay, so Justin, you need to knock everybody else out. Anybody that's still there, thank you. if you want to come back when we're done, or just stay on in the waiting room, and we'll be back when we're done with our.
Okay, getting to it. Thank you.
Rick, you know you're still screen sharing, right?
Yeah. Let me stop that.
That's what was screwing me up because apparently I was on full screen mode and I couldn't see the mute and unmute button with the screen sharing, but I figured it out. If I got out of full screen mode, then I could see it.
Yeah.
Just
It's
took
not
me
a
a minute.
perfect setup, that's for sure.
Lisa, I just want to say welcome. I met you a long time ago, if you remember.
At Lakeland High School.
Thornton School, yeah, we talked about this a long time ago, so we didn't have
I
a board, I
know.
don't think, at the time. So,
Rick,
nice
are
to
we
have you on board.
Thanks, Brian. I was hoping we'd be able to chat about that, see if
Yeah.
you remembered.
So we are contained now with the board.
Hang on, Joe.
Rick, just a
Joe,
point
1 second, please.
Hold on, I gotta take that a second here.
Okay, all right, okay.
No, we're on a break, Joe, for 3 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't had court in school in a while. With COVID, and it's too bad,
Yeah,
but what are you gonna do?
yeah. We did it the year before COVID though, right? We did it in
I
20.
think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
I still tell those stories to my kids, different things that we. What it
Hopefully
costs
we
for a
can
lawyer, what it costs for a private lawyer to show up, and the guy that stole the Pokemon cards, and it's like probably costing about $1,000. I mean, come on, folks. The guy that stole the 6-pack of Mountain Dew, I said it must have been gold, Nick, Mountain Dew, because I mean, wow, just the add-on, just.
I had
crazy.
I had a candy bar once.
Oh, geez. I always
Yeah.
told the judge I'd love to do a rolling total on this board on the side. Like, this gets you this, ting, just to show the kids, get a visual. She thought it was pretty funny, but to get the visual, how much it cost. I mean, it's just crazy. People just these kids don't try, they can get anything else out of it, besides just don't do anything wrong, but how much it's going to cost you? I mean, it's ridiculous. All the fees and the state fees, and the state program.
I think where it gets ridiculous is when they recur.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine, it happened, deal with it, but that should be the end of it. And then it's not.
Time she was trying to get the one guy to take your help. And the guy said, I'll do it myself. So afterwards I said, it was Judge Costin, I think. I said, what? He says, that guy could have got so much better deal, but he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to pay the $120 for the lawyer. I said, she kept saying, sir, I think you want to take the help, and you didn't want nothing to do with it. So, but we learned a lot. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Were we keeping Beth Corwin along for this, or?
Yeah, Beth can come in.
Okay, she's still here. I just haven't. I wasn't
sure. All right.
Gone.
We got everybody back.
Looks like it.
Okay, I don't know if I can get this to.
Jennifer, make it back.
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So what we need to do here is make a decision as to whether the board is willing to acquire this piece of property. And I wish I could have got this down so I could put it on the screen, but I had enough trouble trying to make everything else work.
Hey, Rick,
Yes,
this meeting is not being recorded, right?
but I erase it. I guess I can stop it right now. Yes, that's a good idea. Where the heck is it? Okay.
Open the gates.
I hope it's recording. It says it is.
Yeah, you're recording.
All right.
Everybody's back that was still waiting.
Okay, so somebody else want to make that motion? My head's scrambled right now.
I would move to approve as discussed in closed session, to proceed with the purchase of 58.22 acres. Do you have parcel ID numbers, Rick?
I'll give you this consisting of,
I think the motion was just gonna be to authorize the supervisor to proceed as discussed in closed session, if that's.
Okay, that works.
cool.
Okay. All right, we need a second.
Support
Second.
Sylvia.
Okay,
I guess Joe got this one.
all right,
Overwhelming support.
all right. So let's vote, please.
All right, Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe says yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Mrs. Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right. So on that note, I think that's it. Meeting.
Tammy, could you bring me some fudge back from Mackinac City? Thanks.
Okay, meeting's adjourned.
I'm going to Grand Rapids. I could probably bring you some beer.
No,